with God and His promises. So, this is why we really need to learn. And it is during this period when nothing seems to be happening, when prayer seems to go unanswered, when God seems so far away from us, that the most spiritual growth take place in our lives. Why? Because we strive. We don't quit. When we quit, that is the negative side of our being human being. We do not quit. Even sometimes we don't know what to do next. Sometimes we thought that we are finished. We have to fight. We have to continue because we are relying on God through faith. And He is there for us to pick us up, to help us and build us up, to strengthen us and make us to become a vessel unto honor. Not a vessel to dishonor God. If we quit, then that is the sad part. We dishonor God. Because a quitter thinks differently. He does the opposite. Instead of him having the kind of powerful testimony, he begins to have nothing, no more testimony. He could no longer show to the onlookers how powerful Christian he becomes. So when he goes down, people also will what? They are no longer going to follow your example. So they are not going to be encouraged to become a Christ-like person because of how you live your life. So, that when we learn to become more like Jesus, living in the wilderness, being tested after 40 days when he fasted. It is during this time that we build spiritual muscle, that we grow in faith, that we learn to only depend on Him, not to depend on ourselves. This is why we really need to cry out to God, so that He will take over even the encouragement in us. He is the one who is going to help us. What are we waiting for today? What longing do we have that seems so far from ever being fulfilled? What prayer do we keep on praying that seems to never reach God's ears? We want to remind ourselves that God is not deaf to our prayers. He is not blind to our constant tears, to our desires, and to our needs. He knows everything. But He wants us to be courageous. That is what He told Joshua. Be courageous. Be courageous. You don't depend on anything, but be courageous. Have faith in God. If God is making us wait, there is a very good reason for it. If He is telling us, no, not today, maybe it's because He has a better way of giving us a blessings, because waiting, will give us something better. If He is keeping us in the same place or the same level of anointing, that would still be good. We have always been circling around when we are just alone without God. So maybe it's because He's helping us build up not only our faith, but to trust Him, and in our spiritual walk will become more meaningful and more powerful before entering our long promised career as God's servant. So we become more fruitful because God is involved in our growth. If He is not healing us or bringing us victory today, maybe it's because we will have a greater benefit from waiting on Him, resulting in a far greater testimony that awaits us. This will help us to be an overcomer on the coming days ahead. So you see, it is so important, the development of our character. Godly character. Wherever we are today, know that God is right beside us, and that there is a reason for every moment of delay. And that purpose is to learn how to wait on God, how to trust on Him, even sometimes we are not receiving the blessing on time. But still, sometimes we have difficulty in making, payments. So if it will not come, then we are in trouble. But sometimes when God delays it, the one who we should pay also, He move it back. He move it, that we are not going to also be in trouble. So there are ways that the Lord, does in our life. All we need to do is always communicate with Him, that we should be one in spirit with God. Don't give up just because we don't achieve seeing anything that should be happening a moment of time. And maybe we don't see nothing that is happening physically that our eyes could see, but there is definitely something that is happening in the spiritual realm as we learn to rely on Christ. So don't allow our waiting period to make us hopeless about what tomorrow may bring. Instead, let it build our faith and give us even greater hope for what God has prepared for us, because God did not call us to become a paperweight and just to occupy space, pampabigat at panggulo. He makes us wait for our learning, being dependent on Him, so that the purpose that we've been praying for years, and sometimes for so many decades, will happen. There is a clear sign of manifestation when the Lord will take over. So patience, the joy in waiting, endless faithfulness, steadfastness in faith makes us closer to God. This is the most important part of building our character in God, is when we become very, very close to God. That is a winner. He makes us wait to fulfill His call in our life after He puts the desires and passion in our hearts to serve Him in a peculiar way. He makes us wait to give us the desires of our heart, whether it's having a child, like Susette, wanting to have a baby, or for those who wanting to have a spouse, or wanting to have a better job, or a better place to live. He makes us wait for direction when we are stuck at a dead end and we don't know where to go or what to do. He could answer the same prayers that you've been praying for years every night in a millisecond. That same prayer that has been bringing you to tears. That same prayers that the longer that it goes unanswered, the more it makes you question whether He even hears. But remember, He kept Moses in the desert for 40 years. The waiting period. Joseph in a prison cell for more than 10 years. Abraham without a child for 100 years. And more so, you think that Abraham is the oldest person who had a child in an old age? No. Noah. He got married when he was already 500 years old. Look at the history of the Bible. And he was able to marry the child of the son of Methuselah. Who's the next one? The one who is next to Methuselah? The daughter of that person, he got married. And that person, the wife, is Noah was 500 years old. The wife is 580 years old.
That's all na.
Yeah. And they got children. That means God, there's nothing impossible.
Yes.
There's nothing impossible.
It's impossible.
So,
Do it for 500 years.
You see, David on the run for 15 years. And maybe he is keeping, you're right where you're at the same reason to keep this man for so many years. So to build our faith, when we are in the most difficult times, it strengthens us and makes us to become a man. You're the man. You're the man of the hour. That is why it is being quoted, you're the man of the hour. Because you don't just buckle under pressure. Even when there is nowhere to go, you are going to face death. Then you are willingly going to face death. And that is because God had already built you up to become like a fortress. Because God is our fortress. God is our rock. So remember this. Do not be sad if we are being put on a waiting period. Yung nanganganak nga, may waiting period eh. And sa waiting room eh, bago manganak, how many hours, sometimes, and days. Oh. But after the child, the baby or the infant comes out, it's victory. See? It's victory. So, this is why there is always a time for everything. There's always a meaning. God always wanted us to learn why we need to learn how to wait on God. Sadhu was the one, teaching us about waiting on God. There are 4 series of it. If you're going to watch it, it builds your faith up. It's so beautiful. So it gives you makes you to become a stronger Christian, very powerful. Praise the Lord.
Praise the
Let's all
Lord.
stand. Let's sing unto the Lord.